have the usuals in Finding Nemo. Alone in every hole 7. I mean, no, I can imagine they got like alone in every hole 1 and 2. But by 7, I mean, they must have been making holes. Continue that franchise for that long.
Certainly not for everyone, and everyone has their own sex, and I think that's part of the point. But as the chair said, I run streetbroadband.com, which is the leading porn website in the UK and Ireland. I know the industry and its people very well, and I'm friends with a lot of people who work in France and behind the camera, and I wouldn't work in this industry if I thought people were being abused or exploited in it. I don't think that porn's immoral. I've made that decision, otherwise I wouldn't be working in the business. There are plenty of things I wouldn't work in. I wouldn't be involved in the oil industry, I wouldn't be involved in tobacco, I wouldn't be involved in the arms industry. The porn industry doesn't fall into those categories as far as I'm concerned. I've really defined porn as I'm defending it. Porn is simply, what I'm defending it is photos and videos of consenting adults having sex or engaged in sexual acts. And sexual acts these days, as you all know, if you've Googled a bit, mean pretty much anything. The key thing is that they are consenting adults. And beyond that, pretty much nothing else matters. We run a big porn site, so we know who looks at porn and why they look at porn. We get about 500,000 visitors a month to our site. And about 85% of those are male and 15% of those are female. Now, in my experience, women enjoy porn pretty much as much as men do. The difference is that men, as we know in every other field, tend to be more compulsive and obsessive about stuff. So, you know, guys will like to come back and look at something every day, and women will dip in out of curiosity. Female tastes in porn are no more gentle and no softer and no more politically correct than male tastes in porn. In fact, some of the things that women tend to look at and men don't look at are at the more extreme end of the scale. I'm talking to the guys in the room. You girls know that you enjoy sex and you enjoy porn probably as much as men do, but it is something that guys often don't realise. The reason that men look at porn and use porn more than women is quite simple. Men masturbate on the whole more than women. I know women who masturbate every day. I know women who absolutely never masturbate. There are, someone else's quote, 95% of men masturbate every day, and 5% of men are liars. It goes. I mean, basically, there's a real reason for that. Evolution, or if you prefer, God, has left mankind, humankind, with a huge problem. The problem is this: men are fertile and ready to go every day, and women aren't. Men, in theory, are capable of producing maybe 20,000 children in their lifetimes. Women are capable of producing maybe 20 children in their lifetimes. And that, you know, to be crude about it and to put it in supply and demand terms, there is a hell of a lot more semen being produced in the world than there is demand for semen. And that is, I can understand, it's totally understandable why evolution would come up with that solution. And men are very competitive, men are always there competing for fertile females, and when a woman is fertile, you don't get a second chance, you go for it. I can't understand quite why God would create this situation, but the basic problem is that men may want to have sex every day, they can't. It's a basic fact that we all, the difficult fact that we all have to learn and live with, and that's why masturbation exists. There's also a study, it turns out, and here's, if you're feeling guilty about masturbation, here's your justification. It turns out that the more you masturbate in younger life, the less risk of prostate cancer you have in older life. I also believe, and turning to the more serious side of things, we're often accused of causing societal problems in the industry. Sexual freedom is accused in general of causing all sorts of problems. I believe strongly that sexual violence and abuse of women and children actually rises the more repressed, the more sexually repressed the society is. And I've been around, it's quite hard to find statistics to back this stuff up, but I dug out a few statistics. Firstly, I compared the Netherlands and Denmark, which are pretty much the porn and sexual freedom capitals of the world, with the United States, which is probably certainly the most religious place in the Western world, and which has a lot of sexual issues. The rates of rape in Denmark are 9 victims per 100,000 population. In the Netherlands, 10 victims. In the United States, 30 victims per 100,000 of the population. That's a threefold difference between probably the most sexually repressed countries and the least sexually repressed countries, at least in the Western world. I also did a breakdown of states within the US, and I broke down Bible Belt states versus non-Bible Belt states. So looking at non-Bible Belt states, Pennsylvania, the figure is 27 per 100,000. California is 25, New York is 16, Massachusetts is 27. In Bible Belt states, in Louisiana it's 36, in Texas it's 36, in Alabama it's 36, in Florida it's 36. Now I also found out that we have panelists today from Kansas, so I quickly Google and found out the rate in Kansas, which is pretty much a God-fearing country, is 45 per 100,000 population. In other words, a woman is 5 times more likely to be raped in God-fearing Kansas than they are in porn-loving Denmark. And I think that's very significant. There's a famous man said that he who's without sin cast the first stone, and I think porn is playing a hell of a lot more than it should be. It wasn't pornographers who threw planes into buildings in New York, and it's not pornographers sitting in the White House planning how they can attack Iran before they leave office in January. Porn gets a lot more thrown at it than it deserves. I'll just wrap up there really. It's only sex. It won't hurt you. Society has been made to be far too frightened of sex for far too long. Having sex is the best thing in the world, but if you can't, then watching other people doing it is
Our next speaker is Philip Cosby. Philip Cosby is the Executive Director of the Kansas City Office of the National Coalition for the Protection of Children and Families. After a long career in the U.S. Army, he now works full-time speaking and advocating against pornography. Together with his wife, Kathy, a former police detective, Mr. Cosby's recent focus has been on the role of emerging technologies in the growth of human sexual slavery.
Thank you. This is quite an adjustment for me, coming from Kansas, a long way from... Any of you ever seen Wizard of Oz? I'm not in Kansas. It is an honor to be here. It's an honor to be asked. I tell you, I'm not a criminologist. I'm not a psychologist, philosopher. I'm not a theologian. I'm not police enforcement. I am, 5 years ago, was struck by the devastation that was occurring in our communities in America by the proliferation of pornography. 5 years ago, I put an ad in the paper. My little town, Abilene, Kansas, the home of Ike Eisenhower, very Norman Rockwell kind of community. That's right, we had a sheriff, Area Whiter, but it's a western town, Cowtown. Along the interstate, it was ambushed by a pornography outlet. I put an ad in the paper and I asked the men in the county to come meet with me. I did not know them. 150 men showed up. I said, guys, here's the deal. We have a pornography outlet that is set on the front porch of our town now. I'm going to ask you as husbands, as fathers, I'm going to ask you to examine yourself about your own lives.